right, welcome to another episode of the Digital Recruiter Podcast. Today, I am joined by Jonaed Iqbal. He has become a good friend over the last few months. He is all over LinkedIn. He's got 40,000 plus followers. He has some amazing content. He's the founder of nodegree.com. He's helping people that don't have degrees get their dream jobs and careers. He's written over 500 resumes. He's done a little bit of recruiting. He's got a podcast. He's got different websites. He is all over the place. Really smart dude. Just an awesome person, high integrity. I just really enjoy getting to know him. He knows a ton about content and branding and just what it's like to be in the candidate in the market. So I'm excited to have him on here. Jonaed, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's just amazing how these connections form on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the most serendipitous platform, and I find social in general, you just never know who you meet. And I went to networking events, and people were like, "Hey, I saw this post that you made, and we're even connected." And I was like, "What?" And then we connected, and now she engaged with my post. So I really encourage a lot of people who don't realize that social media is very powerful if you use it the right way.
It's amazing. I mean, I'm running two businesses now because of it. And the people I met, like yourself and some clients, and now some people turn into business partners, and just those friendships and relationships are hugely important in my life now. And it all came from just posting on LinkedIn. Like that's it.
Yeah.
How so? Talk to us. I mean, I always ask everyone, how you got into recruiting, but I know recruiting you got a little taste of it, but you've
Yeah.
really kind of gone in a different direction and more of the candidate world. Talk to, how we got into recruiting and nodegree.com, kind of
Yeah.
want to hear the backstory, man.
Yeah. So 9 years ago, on August 2014, I was on Reddit. Someone asked in Ask Reddit, where people ask questions, for those of you without a college degree who make over six figures, what do you do and how'd you get the job? And the answers were like, I'm a claims adjuster, I'm a surveyor, elevator repair, I'm a recruiter, I'm a database administrator. And it was like, how'd you get the job? Oh, my uncle, my cousin, my aunt, my friend, teacher was retiring. Right place, right time. It was never like, hey, I want to be a recruiter ever since I was 8 years old. And that's what happened. And so I was like, these are jobs that people don't think about having when they grow up. And then the thing is, if you don't know anything about recruiting, how do you become a recruiter? It can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I was like, why don't I be that uncle, cousin, or friend where I teach people about careers and I show them the roadmaps so that they can actually do it? And then I searched up trades.com, but that's like a dictionary word. That would have been like $1 million or something. I searched up nodegree.com and we got an inquiry. I didn't answer the first email or something, and then we got an offer of like 15 to 1800. We negotiated down to 1433, and that's when it started. So the first few years, couple guys in the basement, we just figuring things out. Like I was intern, I got like my first full-time job. So it was like, I was still like partly in grad school, and I was like, okay, you know what? I really need to learn just the ins and outs. And there's a lot of years of research, and then I was like, you know what? The market is I need to be a job board so that companies can post and then people can find it and I can focus on a lot of content. Now, it was always tough because I was working full time and I used to be an actuary. For people who don't know, actuaries have to take exams to move up in their careers. And these exams are like 100 to 300 hours of, like, think about like a math final on super steroids. So it was one of those that, and you have to pass like an exam every 18 months. I was like, look, I would like, and they had a rule, you have to pass every 18 months. So what I would do is I would pass in like the third cycle, and then I would extend my time at the company because you get fired. So I passed it and I renewed my time. And then I was like, look, I can't spend hundreds of hours doing things. I really need to have free time outside of work. So then I got a regular job as a data analyst. And then eventually I was like, look, I have so much that I know I need to do. I need to do this full time. So I quit my job. I mean, thankfully I live at home. So that gave me some flexibility. I always tell people I didn't have a cushion. I didn't have anything. I quit my job and I didn't make money for 15 freaking months. Like I was like, damn, I like help people move. I like did all those odd things
Yeah.
to like make a little money. And you
But to
know what?
support the dream.
Yeah, support the dream. And yeah, then eventually I got on LinkedIn, and then 7 months on LinkedIn, and eventually I figured some things out.
So, okay, so 9 years ago, you get newdegree.com, you quit the job. How
5 years
many
ago, I quit the job 5 years ago. So I
so then
quit the
you quit the
job.
job 9 years ago. Then you quit the job 5 years ago, and it takes 15 months. You're working the side jobs. What are you doing in those 15 months as you're building out, and try to
I,
drum up, like, what was that like? Yeah.
yeah, so I quit August 2018, right? I was an assistant wrestling coach, so I'm really involved in the community and stuff. Something I like to do, just give back. But I was networking a lot. Like I was networking. I was going here. I like met my mentor actually around that same time and just really networking. I was like, yo, I'll do this. And I was trying to create content. I took 100-hour course on Facebook ads. My friend's brother had a course that he created. He sold for like $4,000. I got it for free. So I took this 100-hour course on like Facebook ads and funnels. And that helped me get some ideas about social media algorithms. So I was growing an Instagram account, but then Instagram changed their algorithm. You know how these platforms, and I was losing growth. And then I was like on Quora answering questions, but it didn't drive traffic. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't I get on LinkedIn? Somehow I came across it because I was like, every time I leave a comment, they see my picture and they see my headline, and then they
Yeah.
can check out my page. And then what I did was I did 100 comments a day, like, and I wouldn't do the thanks, amazing, all that. And this was before ChatGPT, so
Yeah.
like you had to think about it. But I just ended up building a lot of relationships. I learned a lot. Like I would learn from actually a lot of recruiters. Like they'll say, "Hey, here's what an ATS is," because I had no idea. I was like, "Oh, okay." An ATS. Here's how you write a good resume. Here's some things you should consider. And I learned bits and pieces. Like a lot of people don't realize that there are people, and just like you, who give gold nuggets straight on their feet, like things that you would have to pay for if you had a coach. But if you go out there and follow the right people, and I did that, and then eventually it just led to me doing resumes and making money.
I love that. Yeah, that's what people ask. We were just on the content call, right, for the Digital Recruiter Mastermind, which you've done an awesome job, just like giving so much value the last few weeks to our recruiters that are in there. I studied this for years. I've been following feeds and creators and understanding the tone that I want to hit and trying some stuff out on Facebook and LinkedIn and really understanding, like, learning from others, and I said those free nuggets that are out there, and really trying to understand, like, what do I want, my identity to be on here, right? And I don't want it to be, I want it to be congruent with who I am, but you don't need to show everything, but
Yeah,
it's like I want to be congruent with who I am in business, right? And it's a way to kind of make your stamp as to, like, this is what I'm bringing to the table in business, and there's a real opportunity there, but it does take time and
yeah.
consistency. When did you start to see, like, the tide shift in your favor and, like, starting to create some revenue?
So February 2019, I got on LinkedIn. Right, I was networking, I was live streaming. Around October, November, I met one of my friends, and we were live streaming together and all that. And he's like, Jonaed, I'm making money doing resumes. You could do it. And originally, I didn't want to do resumes because I was like, I don't be the person who just charges $50 and just changes some formats and all that. But he was telling me his process. He's like, look, I sit down with these people. And then I was thinking, okay, I was like, I need traffic for a job board. You need traffic, right? To get employers to post. And it's like that chicken or egg scenario. But I was like, why don't I do resumes? But I'll do it a unique way. I was like, I'll sit down with these people for 4 to 6 hours. Originally, some people I sat down for 7 to 8 hours. I was like, let me learn about their experiences, and then I'll write the resume in front of them. I was like, I'll give them a
Interesting.
unique experience. And so that's why people are like, well, how do you know so much? I was like, look, I literally interviewed this guy who was a CIO of this. I interviewed a CTO of that. I interviewed a clown on that. And I interviewed a salesperson in that. So I essentially was like, I'm getting paid for case studies that I get to learn about all these careers. And that's what helps my content. And, every person, I learn a little bit. I learned like, oh, this person made this much. This person made this much. Oh, this is a recruiter. They do XYZ. And I just kept on learning and learning. And the first few resumes, I would charge like 50 to, I think one resume was like $100. Then the next one I raised to $200. Then it was like 297, and that was like a good rate, like in the beginning. And
Yeah.
look, I would say looking back, it was a starting rate, but I saw these people start getting raises, and I just really learned a lot. And I'm not a hardcore seller. Like some people, like, hey, you need to use me, blah blah blah. I like creating. like authority through content. And I like having fun. You know, you've probably seen it where these people are just always selling, and it's like boring. Like, who wants to go and be like, "Yep, bye." It's like, hey, I want to get to know someone. I want to get to know what they're about, and I just network, and I start getting referrals, and then I started increasing my prices slowly, slowly. Like, then I went to 350. And then the one thing that I'll say that changed the game, my friend was like, hey, she's like, Jonaed, I charge like 1,000 plus for resumes. He's like, but people don't pay up front. I do payment plans. So then I started doing it. At one point, I charged 297 for resumes. And then I went to 347. I got like no business. So I had to go back down. Like, I remember my girlfriend, she was like, no, don't raise it. I was like, no, I can raise it. Watch. And then she's like, see, I told you. And then I was like, what I did was I said, let's do 2 payments of 227. And you know what? Even though it was 50% more, I was getting the same amount of business. And I made it. I was like, look, if you're not happy, don't pay the second payment. And like, look, 95% of people paid. And then that's how I kind of always raised my prices, because I was like, look, I'll do it. And after people do the first session, most people still continue. And so that's how I started making money, and then just networking.
There are so many lessons there, and so many things I want to uncover from that. It's you learning the stories, right? Number one, doing the work, getting in there, charge the price that gets you in there to be able to do the
Yeah.
work, get the case studies, and learn, right? And this applies to people, recruiters, maybe building their agency, right? I've had people come to me
Yeah.
like, oh, well, my rate is 6%, right? And veteran recruiters are like, oh, I would never work on something
Yeah.
6%. Well, it's like, well, this person, it's their side hustle. Number one, they're
Yeah.
already making 150K a year at their full time job, and so 6% on that, they're still
Yeah.
making the roles. They're still making 10,
Yeah.
15, 1,000 on a placement or whatever. Like they're happy at 6.
Yeah.
It's all context, right? But then I showed him how to like work up his prices. But
Yeah.
sometimes you have to earn your way up to prices, and some people just throw out numbers for the sake of it because I'm going to make a bunch of money, or like online
Yeah.
coaching programs. They're going to charge 15K just so they don't have to do any work and they have other
Yeah.
people handle them. And it's like, no.
No.
Like you got to earn your price range,
Yeah.
And sometimes that is with your payment plan. It's like, it's not necessarily just about the number, right? It's being
Yeah.
able, the ease of being able to work with you is
Yeah.
so important, right? And making it
Yeah.
accessible to engage in your services. That doesn't mean the lowest price
Yeah.
at all
And I want to
times.
I want to
Yeah.
really add on that. Like, I come across so many people, they're like, "Oh no, I'm in this new industry. I'm not doing it. I know my worth." And I'm like, "Look, are you getting any business? You're worth you're getting 0%. Like, your rate is $0.
Yeah.
You know?" And
Fixed mindset. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just like, look, if you haven't made someone happy at $20, how are you going to make them happy at 40? How are you going to make them happy at 60? And it's like, look, do one. Even if you get one client. If you can't get one client, then your rate is 0. And I think too many people focus on this because they read to these online coaches like, hey, sell these high ticket program. And here's the interesting thing. I see a lot of people, they were like, I sold a 5K program. I didn't even know how to do the work. And I researched how to do the work. So it's like, whereas like you could have gone in, maybe you charge 1,000, maybe you charge 500. You go for that 6%. You learn the systems, you learn the ins and outs. You learn, okay, I can charge more. Now you have case studies. Now you have referrals. Now you have this. Now you charge. Where some people are like, hey, I'm not recruiting for anything less than 30%, and they have no business. And it's like, in 1 year, you could have got like 10 placements at 6% instead of 0 at 30.
Exactly, and it's always revealing on LinkedIn. And I've had a couple exchanges with other recruiting coaches. Don't research any of their names if you're listening. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. But and it's been telling. I've had some great interactions and relationships. And some have become coaches in the program, and some other ones get a little bit insecure and all that stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, like you're on that path right now. Like
Yeah.
I get it. Like I'm not, where you go figure your stuff out, but it's all this stuff to me. I mean, it feels earned. I started a digital recruiter 2 years ago was 1,500 for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, and I gave everything. I mean, I think everyone those 6 weeks, they got like 12 weeks for me. They got like 4 months for me for that 15, because I was like, I'm gonna crush it for you. Like, give me a case study, testimonial. I had to. They were everything to me, and that it's so fun. Like, I have such a good memory looking back on it.
Yeah.
The first week I did a group call in Digital Recruiter, I had COVID. I was a mess on the call. I could barely string a sentence together. And like, I did a beta offer. I had 3 people in the program because that's what I felt comfortable with, and 2 of them I'd already worked with before. So I kind of, we were going in this direction. One was brand new, and the new guy was like, he didn't know me, and he messaged one of the other members. He's like, "Is Clark like legit?" And she's like, "He knows his stuff. Just trust me. Like it's gonna
Yeah, yeah,
work out." And sure enough, we got his outreach going, and within an
yeah,
hour, he had like a perfect lead, and like
yeah.
it turned into a client and a placement. He's like, "Wow, this is amazing." I was like, I knew like just like. And so, like, I have props to to Tara.
Yeah.
She had my back, but again, that's
It's
also the
nervous.
referral, the network, right? You build
Yeah,
that goodwill, people will have your back. But
yeah,
I came through with that number, and then little by little, I raised it, and then I
yeah,
raised it. I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for that. I got to go back, and I got to improve the program, and I've had so much to get better at
yeah,
in the program for people. And now I'm like, that is what's important. I want to make sure
yeah,
people get 10 times the value in the ROI that they invest in me and
yeah,
anything that they have. And I know you have the same approach. And
yeah,
it's so powerful when you approach it that way. You feel like you're aligned internally,
yeah.
right? Like your conscience is clear, which is really important.
No, you know what? That reminds me. It's a relief, right?
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes the first time I work with the lawyer, right? I'm like, look, trust me, I've done it. I can do it for you. But you're kind of like, and you know what's funny? Those people, they're like, he messaged me. I was like, how's it going? He's like, yo, my wife wants to thank you. I got an 80K raise. And I was like, okay. Like it's such a relief when you're like, okay, 1 hour, okay, boom, I
Yeah.
did it. And it's nice. But I always tell people like it's okay to have that nervousness, but do your work, do right by your clients, have that customer service. And a lot of people they just see it. Like I've had clients, look, sometimes there's some clients that take longer. Like I had a client, he wasn't getting in this market, he wasn't getting the same interviews, right? And I said, look, I I I'm gonna keep giving you extra coaching because I said you're gonna get this, you're not getting the hits. And I even at one point I was like, look, I'll waive the second payment because I was like, I feel like I failed you. He's like, no, no, no. He got a job. He's like, yo, just let me get my second paycheck, I'll pay you. So it's like you want to when you build that trust and you build that referral, you get people who are like, you know what, like they're premiums, but that premium is worth it. You're paying for good stuff.
It- I really haven't covered this topic at all on any
Yeah,
of the episodes. So I love that we're doing it now. And that you're also a coach, and you're doing the work, right, the
yeah,
resume, but just getting the stories out and doing that work and really kind of having that ROI attached to it. It's been a lesson for me, like no matter
yeah,
what, even if as the modules were getting better and I'm trying to figure that out and improve the course modules, like we're always available for a one-on-one call or a
yeah,
chat or to check in or whatever you're stuck with. That has always been like a digital recruiter staple. It's like if you are
yeah,
stuck, you reach out and someone will get on a call with you and talk to you one on one, and we will figure it out, right? And we will hear
yeah,
you out and figure out the problem. And I've had people, stay longer than the 3 months or the 6 months. Like we are gonna get there in the
yeah,
solution, and it's like I don't do the money back
yeah,
guarantee. If there is ever a payment plan or whatever, it's like, but again, people always stick it out,
yeah,
but it's like you're gonna get the value because like I gotta also have your money, like your head in it. Like the
yeah,
reason we
yeah.
don't do money back is like I need you to be invested
No,
in
very
this.
true.
Like it's together. It's not me or you. It's both of us doing it. And if something's not clear or the market's tougher, right? You're in a tough industry. Like I'll help you to get the result, but like you got to drive forward because I do think like the money back and all that. It's a low vibration. I don't think it actually creates the forum, the space to actually make progress and make
No,
improvements.
you know what? So one thing I've learned is don't work with people who don't trust you. Because
Yeah.
it's one thing your first thing, you don't have clients and stuff. You got reviews at the bottom of your profile. You got testimonials. You got all that. Even the free stuff you give is so good. And I found like because I have right now, I have like 260 plus reviews. And when I was like 150, I had people like, how do I know you're gonna work? I'm like, look, I'll be honest. I have over 150 reviews. There are people who are charging 3, 4 times my price. I'm not even charging that price, and you don't trust me. I'll be like, look, I can't help you, and if you don't trust me, because you know what it is they don't trust themselves,
Yeah.
and you can't help someone who's not ready. And I've seen it.
Dude, you are so right. You are so right. Man, you're so spot on. This is, I mean, dude, you're coaching me on this right now because this is stuff I've talked to Christina about,
Yeah,
and kind of looking back, and I just think it's such an angle. I mean, I'm going to start
yeah,
really looking at this and using this more. It really is. It's a trust, and we talked about it on the call, right?
yeah,
Like building trust. It's where the content and building the brand, like you're trying to build the trust.
Yeah.
right? And because it's so important, because I want people to get the result. But you're right. If they don't trust me, they're not going to get there,
Yeah.
right?
They're
And
not they're
yeah,
not going to give you referrals, and they're going to be the hardest clients to work with. Like I had someone who I was just like going back and forth, and it's like interesting because it's like these people come to me with bad resumes, they're not getting interviews, and they're arguing with me. And I'm like, look, are you getting I sometimes have to like put that line, are you getting interviews, are you getting leads? It's just like you give them LinkedIn advice and they come to you with the worst profile. And there's sometimes in the middle of the call I'm like, look, I will give you a refund and give you your money back. It does not look like you trust me. And I've had people completely change their tone because you have to have that where it's like, look, I I I'm not giving you things that are going to resonate. I'm telling you why it works. I'm not just saying, hey, do this to your profile. I'm telling you, do this because of XYZ. Here's how it's going to do it. And I'm going to fully explain, here's a scenario where it works. But I avoid people who don't trust me, especially because we have our presences built. We have a lot of things. We have social proof. We have all that. What I've realized is maybe they want someone who worked at a Microsoft or who worked at certain companies. I will never compete that. I was like, that time is better spent focusing on the other people. And then I get other people who are like, hey, $1,000, where do I do it? And I'm like, whoa, we didn't even like book a day. You're just ready to give me money. You're like ready to
yeah.
give me a Zelle. I was like, hey, so I think it's really important in any type of business, especially if it's high ticket, you need to get that trust because if they don't trust you, you're just going to waste all your time qualifying them. And then at the end, like I had one guy, he was like, all right, can you give me a guarantee that? And I was like, look, if you don't get at least a 15% increase on your thing, you don't pay the second payment. He did all that, and then he was like, nah, it's a little outside my budget. So I went through all this, gave him all this free value, all that. So I just realized, like, those people, I'm like, look, I can't guarantee you. You got to put in work.
Yeah, but you got to put in the work. That's why it's one of the pillars of joining, right, the digital recruiter program. You got to show up. You got to put in the work, right? And for we got a lot of recruiters, agency owners listen to this. This applies to qualifying clients, qualifying your job orders. Like
Yeah,
these are themes and principles across the board. They're applicable everywhere, right? Kind of having those boundaries and you work there, right? It's not always perfect, right? And there's some friction. There could be some gray areas, but you got to be willing to embrace that
yeah,
and embrace that sometimes it's not going to go well, and just being okay saying no and walking away. The
yeah.
more you get there, man, it's such a freer feeling
It is.
on the other side, man. It is so
It's
free. Yeah.
yeah. And you know what's interesting? I've looked back at my calls, right? Like the people who didn't pay the second payment, right? And I did the work for it. One lady, she didn't pay the second. Like it was two payments of 227. She was like, "How could I?" I was like, "Look at my background. Look at this. If you're not happy," and she did get a job, and she didn't pay the second payment. And I emailed her a couple times, and it's like I'm not gonna go follow it, right? It's cost of doing business. It happens. Now, another thing is a lot of times when they're that distrustful, it reveals something about their character because it's projection. Because people who are thieves think everybody steals because that's, hey, if I were in this situation, that's what I would do. So that's what I've also found where it's like I had one guy, I was supposed to have a client today. He was like, hey, he rescheduled last week. He rescheduled this week. He's like, hey, I'm really sorry. I got to reschedule at my office. I was like, yo, don't worry. I like being flexible. He's like, yo, I'll pay the second payment, the full payment up front. I was like, no, dude, I trust you because when you get these people who trust you, they have that character. Like I want to have that, and in your business, it will make a night and day difference. You'll sleep so much better, and you'll just be so much more relieved because they know you're doing the best for them, and you know that they're doing the best for you.
Yeah, and all in due time. Right, because sometimes, like, engage, like, you just have to let it breathe. Like, someone's not ready, or they sign up, and something happens, and it needs a couple weeks to kind of hit a restart or whatever. Like, life can happen, right? But it is how people respond to those things that does reveal the character. And you are spot on about the projection. I'm thinking back to some of those. I think I've only had one person out of the 100+ people we've worked with ask for any sort of refund.
Yeah,
He had like 15 one-on-one calls with our team, had a bunch of homework assignments he never did,
yeah,
that never stuff that would have helped, like everything. And I'm like, no, no, we did our
yeah,
job. We showed up for you. I've refunded people that I didn't trust or didn't trust me. And I'm
yeah,
like, at weekend, I'm like, this isn't a fit. Like, here's your
yeah.
money back. Right. Like, and I can count on one hand the amount of times that's happened.
Yeah.
right? And it goes back to trust, and this is a very real conversation, and it's this stuff happens to recruiters. I mean, having the boundaries, those clients that they pitch low fees or they don't take you
Yeah.
seriously, not giving you feedback, like being able to just let go, and if I
Yeah.
can kind of encapsulate this theme of whether it's coaching or resume writing or recruiting, you got to be able to see those signs, those red flags, and know it's a projection and be able to let that go, right? And we can kind of go into talking about LinkedIn and the brand, right? One of the best ways to get over that is play the numbers game, have leads, have a pipeline, right? Build that. If you're hanging on one prospect because that's all you got, you're going to be put yourself in a tough situation
Yeah. Yeah.
to take on a bad client. That's where I see most people fall and get in
Yep.
trouble, right? So obviously you built up this brand, you built up content. Now you got leads left and right. You got
Yeah.
reviews. Talk to me about the process where you maybe had one or two leads to getting now, dozens per month, right? Like,
Yeah.
how did you get there?
So again, going back to earning my dues. So it's like now since I've done over 500 resumes, even if I'm not active on LinkedIn. So let me tell you the story. I did one guy's resume. He was like, "Yo, why don't you help my friend?" I did his friend's resume. I got him he got a 30K raise and 37.5K year in stock. So he essentially got a 67.5K raise. All right. I did his brother's resume and I got his brother a job. I did the update. I got his brother the update on the job. I did his mom's resume. I did his stepmom's resume. I did his stepmom's coworker's resume. He moved. I did his new resumes. I did his new roommate's resume, and then I did his roommate's friend resume. And now today I got a referral from the roommate's friend. So it's one of those that if you do good quality work, right? It's not like you go on Google of like, I need a recruiter. Let me go search up. It's these are relationship based areas. You come on platforms and all that. So a lot of it's, and a lot of people don't realize I did over 100 resumes for free. Like, people in my network are like, yo, your wife is looking for a job. Cool. Then it's like wife's friend. So it's one of those things that it's like, I did over 100 resumes, and that's like I'm spending 2 to 3 hours with them. I've also done 1,000 plus 15-minute reviews where I've given people so much value in 15 minutes that I've gotten referrals from that. So it's like you earn your dues. You keep doing this for some time. Like so many people look at this say, oh, I have this 50K a month business. I have this 100K a month business. It's like, oh, I want that. It's like you're not gonna get it in 2-3 months.
Got to pay your
You have to
dues.
build it. You gotta build your dues. You gotta invest. And a lot of people don't realize, like, people like you and I, we've invested well over 6 figures back into the business, right? We're,
Oh
we're like,
yeah.
hey, we could go on vacation, we could upgrade lifestyle. It's like, no, we want to really grow the business and you got to invest back into yourself. So it's like paying the dues, doing those things, taking care of people, keeping in touch. And then through LinkedIn, people find me. But even without that, it's like all these little things, all these little pieces, all these other little favors that I did for people, it's like comes back slowly in different ways.
You can't be selfish.
Yeah.
It's not a recipe for abundance at
Yeah,
all.
it's not.
And the abundance mindset, all that can be woo to some people, but this stuff is real. Like, and
Yeah.
it's to deny it at your own peril, right,
Yeah.
or your own risk.
Yeah.
But it's real, and that people can sense when you've earned it. You've
Of
earned
course.
your dues, and you internalize it. And it's funny because sometimes people have to remind me that I've hit that point. I'm sure it's like
Yeah.
that for you. And you're like, oh, like I have put a lot of work in. I spent
Yeah.
thousands of hours on the phone, just like you have, right? You've done all the dude. That's nuts. 100 resumes for free, 1,000 15-minute reviews. I mean, you are soaring past the 10,000 hour rule.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it is crazy, and it's so obvious with your content and just talking to you, and just the nuggets that you'll give in like a 2 minutes on our call and another 5 minutes, because it's just the way that you listen and you hear people and you tie things together that they didn't think for themselves, right? They wouldn't have realized without you. Like, that's the gold. And that's, back in 2017 when you were working
Yeah.
part-time, you quit your job, right? They
Yeah.
don't see the overnight success
Yeah.
that took 10 years, 15 years, right? And so, like, dude, it's just real.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing in recruiting. People kind of come in and they see the big checks, like, oh, I'm going to get that. How hard can this be? And then it's Mike Tyson, right? Everyone's got a plan until
Yeah.
they get punched in the face, and they get punched in
Yeah.
the face, and it's like, all right, are you blaming everyone else, or are you going to take ownership,
Yeah.
right? And yeah,
Yeah. So I want to add one caveat. So I really like the abundance mentality, but there's a specific thing I do to keep it in check. I have done 100 resumes for free, but I actually do regret doing that many. And I have a different formula. So here's the analogy I give. Like, what would be like your dream client? Like, this would make you make like $1 million a month. What would be like your dream client?
Talking to me?
Yeah. What would be like, oh my God, if I did this, I'd be so set. Like, if I landed a deal with Microsoft and I'm in charge of XYZ, training all the recruiters, what would you say? Like, give me an example.
Yeah, it's a good question. Definitely not a huge company like that, but for us, I think it would be having the digital recruiter like so systemized that
Yeah.
people could go through. We could enroll like 200 people a month or something like
Okay.
that, and everyone gets like has the opportunity to get an amazing result.
Okay. So let's say you get a keynote presentation for at this big recruiter rec con, whatever the recruiter conference is, right? So I always tell people the more you give, the more you receive. Like that's something I've seen it. However, there's only a limited amount you can give. You have limited time, you have limited money. And I tell people if you gave everyone $1,000, you'd be very good at networking. You're just gonna run out of money real quick. But for example, in your case, let's say you could pay $1,000 to meet the conference organizer to get you that spot in front of like 500 recruiters and 50,000 who are watching live. That's worth $1,000. Same thing. Like, let's say I could get a meeting with the CEO of Google or Microsoft. I'd pay $1,000 for that meeting. So I say that you have to adjust your giving based on who you meet, right? In some cases, high cost, high value, right? It makes sense for that opportunity. In other cases, what I would say is you need to have a sustainable way of giving. So you need to give away something that's low cost, that's high value to someone else. So for me, I give free career advice. Hey, 15-minute review. Hey, give me a resume. I'll look at it 2 minutes. Boom. High value, low cost to me. I'll send him to my podcast. I'll give him other things like that where it's like, I've had calls where it's like, hey, here's the mistakes I made in podcasting. Here's a course. Here's a link to a book. So you want to find different ways to give that are sustainable because, yeah, you could give everyone 2 hours of your time, but you also have work, you have a family, you have things to do. So I tell people, and it doesn't matter what you give, right? Because sometimes people are like, I have nothing to give. And I tell people, look, you know about PCs? You can help people buy laptops. I know someone else. They're like, I know a lot about getting cheap flights. Just tell someone, hey, if you ever need cheap flights, I know ins and outs. I did a resume for someone who worked at a car dealership. I was like, look, going forward, you tell people, hey, thank you for your time. I really appreciate all the help you give me. If you're ever buying a car, I used to sell cars, call me. I'll tell you how to negotiate. Again, 5 to 10 minutes, he's saving us 1,000. But now the thing is, even if they never use you, they remember you. They see
Yeah,
you as different. So just find those things that you can give. I've like one guy helped me do groceries. Like, I was like, hey, what seasonings do I need? And he was like that. But it doesn't matter what, there's always something that you can give. And once you have that mentality, you can really just give to so many people. And they're like people who I've done reviews for. They're like, oh, my friend Jason. I was like, I have no idea who Jason is. I probably talked to this guy 2 years ago, but it's come back to me.
yeah. Man, there's so much gold here, and just the giving piece and being able to just like lend a hand and participate and just live life and
Yeah.
dive into life in a sense. And if you don't know what that is, start ask people what they would pay you for. I did that when I
Yeah.
was thinking of leaving Airtech, and I got a lot of feedback of like, coaching or managing, right? Or kind of all that. So I'm like, that's how I started thinking about coaching. And I was like, oh, interesting, right? Because I asked the network and trusted friends, like, where they saw the value in my skills.
Yeah.
And now here we are 8 years later, right? And so that's what it started with. It's just like, all right. And then I coach people for free and I got testimonials and did the
Yeah.
whole thing. And that's like and built up that confidence in that network, and valuing your time is so key, right? I do a lot of email updates now or Slack,
Yeah.
and I cancel calls where people don't fill it out. Like
Yeah.
if I've had people book time on my calendar, they're not serious about actually investing in the program. Like, why are you picking, like, this isn't, there's an
Yeah.
app, there's like a form of questions you fill out
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're not serious about it. That's not being respectful.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
me, I would never do that to someone else, right? And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you give, but you also treat how you want to be treated, others the way you want to be treated, and don't tolerate that. Like,
Yeah.
it's been a hard battle, for me to find
Yeah.
out. And you're right, I can give 100 free hours, But if you're serious about potentially investing in yourself as your recruiter, I'll give you
Yeah.
30 minutes. Like, let's
Yeah.
hash it out. Like, let's brainstorm. Like, let's give you a game plan, right? And all I ask is that you're serious about, like, if this is a fit, we both agree that you're willing to take the next steps,
Yeah.
right? And
You
if
know,
you're not, that's why I'm recording these episodes and put them on YouTube and
yeah.
Spotify. And as you said, giving the game away with content, all that. There's plenty on here on
Yeah.
LinkedIn to like figure out a roadmap and like
Yeah.
kind of run with it, right? But if you want to talk to me one on one, like that's your commitment that like, yeah, I'm seriously considering investing, right?
Yeah.
And something like that. So
You know what's interesting? So one of the reasons I regret doing 100 for free, because 100 resumes for free, because 70% they didn't even update me when they got a job. I was like, you were working at like retail, you got a job at Twitter, you got a job at like, you couldn't even let me know. And they're like, yeah, I got so many interviews. I was like, I didn't even want money from you. I just wanted like a thanks. So what I realized is, I'm if I'm giving time 2 to 3 hours, I don't necessarily look. In some cases, I do favors. Like if you're like, hey, my cousin, my friend, I'll be like, cool. That's so. I'm more intentional with my giving. That I focus on giving it to my community,
yeah,
people who are there outside my community. It has to be a referral, or I have to be like, look, listen to podcasts. I have some free resources. The other thing is, I want to give you a counter to people. I have a friend. He does the thing. It's like, how much are you willing to invest? And the people who put zero, he sends the cancellation, but this is how you word it. You say, hey, thank you. I apologize. I'm going to have to cancel the call. I have found that people who are not ready to invest do not get results. These things take a lot of work, they take a lot of time. So if you're not ready to invest, here are the free resources. But in all my history, I've never seen someone who wasn't ready to invest at least something get results. Because it's true. It's like, hey, I tell people, yo, you want a $200,000 job, but you don't want to buy a course for $10. Like, you don't see like the disconnect.
yeah. Dude, it's so true, right? I want to raise my fees. I want to figure out cold outreach and business development, right? But you won't invest, 5, 10, 15, 20K. When
Yeah,
one placement, you'll make that back. But if
yeah,
you unlock the secret and the approach and the messaging, and it's never like one specific message, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's a mentality, it's an approach,
yeah,
it's a philosophy of if you unlock that and you add that to your skill set, you'll make millions
yeah,
over the course of your life, especially if you unlock sales. Like, what is that worth to you?
yeah,
It's kind of a joke in a
yeah,
sense, right? I invested 10K in a mastermind over about 5.5 years ago. I have ended up getting millions in return of that. Now they
yeah,
actually did their modules are pretty good. They should have never let me run with the coaching offer I had at the time.
yeah,
I don't feel like they were good in that sense, but the network. I met one of my best friends. He ended up being the
yeah.
best man at my wedding. I met the person that
Wow.
I worked at the LinkedIn agency. I met him through that program. I met a bunch of other people. I learned copywriting and like got book recommendations and like I got down this
Yeah,
like this rabbit hole of and I have it's been basically responsible for my all my income the last 4 full
yeah,
years. And so it was invaluable,
yeah,
right? So even a program that might not have been exactly what you thought it was going to be, if you apply enough of the principles and like it changes, opens your door to different things,
yeah,
could still have infinite ROI. So I
yeah,
think it's also stop trying to control everything that you expect, right? And just be like, I trust these people and I'm just going to listen. I'm going to learn. I'm going to go and execute and see what happens.
yeah,
And like you dive in and you see the people on the group calls that we have, right? That they volunteer, they face their fears in front of the group and all that. And everyone else starts nodding their head. Oh, yeah, I'm worried about that too.
yeah,
I'm worried about this. That person that was bold enough to speak up, they got the most value
yeah,
from that because they just dove in. They dove into their investment and everything else and to better themselves. And I'm so proud of them because I've been there before and I'm still there in certain things. Right? I
yeah.
still have my own coaches, and like there is no more rewarding feeling than when you
There's
invest and you bet on yourself and you try to make stuff happen. Like you will get better, you will
yeah,
get those clients, and the universe and for me, God, like that rewards that when
yeah,
you're just like you're serving that purpose and investing in yourself, like you get rewarded, and it's not always that if you're waiting well, I did it. Where's my reward? No, no,
yeah,
no, 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 no. You just got to do it because it's the right thing to do, and you just got to do.
yeah.
So
And it comes.
yeah,
Look, I'm gonna tell you, my mentor. I met her when I quit my job. One of the first networking events. I met her. She was doing her business. I was doing hers. And you know what's interesting? She was a recruiter, like 20 plus years experience, and she was going into something very different. And there were people who were like, no, companies wouldn't pay for this. You got to change your model, right? She stuck with it, right? She made some decent money, and then she was getting these very interesting contracts, 10 to 20K, right? And then again, referrals. She did the work. She did the work, raised their fees. Then, she did okay the first year. Second year, she did okay. Third year, third or fourth year, she cleared $1 million solo, because now she's getting 50K contracts, right? And she's clearing them out in like 2 weeks, right? She's working hard, but it's one of those things like, if you expect the reward in year 1, year 2, year 3, like, it is true. It does take the 10 years to become that overnight success. Like, a lot of people see me, oh, how'd you grow LinkedIn, that quickly in the beginning? It's like, look, I was reading how people wrote posts. I was on Reddit looking at how people wrote. I practiced it. I was part of a public speaking club, right? So people are like, hey, you're a natural at podcasts. And I was like, yeah, I've been part of a public speaking club where we only had like 7 members, and one of them was my nephew who'd come along. So I'd have to like run the club and put myself out there. It's like, you have to keep putting yourself out there. And it's called, I believe it's called like skills stacking or something
Skill
like that.
stacking, yeah.
Yeah, skill stacking, where it's like all the benefits just hit you in year 10. And it's like, people want that year 1, year 2. It's like, yeah, there are some people online who tell you about it. Majority of people, it takes time.
Yeah, and but you can make good money before you ever hit that ceiling,
Yeah,
and that's the thing. You got to find that balance. Like I mean, the Digital Recruiter is 2 years old as of this month.
yeah.
It wasn't even called Digital Recruiter when I started. I changed the name 6 months in. And I
Smart
was
move.
part time for yeah, I was part time for like 6 to 8 months. Like I was I had another full time
Yeah,
gig, and and I took everything out to invest in
yeah.
this, right? Like I took out my 401k, everything. I was all in.
I did that
And
too.
yeah, on this
My
thing,
401k
really?
is zero. My
No,
401k is
zero,
zero.
zero. I got a life okay right now. I gotta
Yeah,
show up every day. Okay, that's what I gotta do, and but it was so worth it. I love that, and it's so valuable. I can, I got a 5-month-old son. I can tell him about that. I started the business. My wife and I got engaged 2 months later. Then had a wedding and at the house, had the kid all while they've been growing this thing, and
yeah,
it's been the most rewarding time in my life. But I had to set aside those, like, I have to, like, I have goals, right? Revenue goals and
yeah,
all that, but setting aside the, like, I have to get here, I have to get to that. And just like, we're in a good spot. We're time to reinvest in the business and to get this thing really good. And it will scale when it is ready.
yep,
Right. And like that is, but we're good, right? We're not starving, but we're good and get coming through for the clients, and like just like taking that deep breath of like, don't rush to some imaginary, there's a imaginary number. I know inflation is real and all that. So like you
yeah,
gotta get above sea level for sure.
yeah,
Right. And be consistent. But once you get to above sea level, like how far up do you really need to go? How fast? And I've seen people get there and then try to do things too quick, and then you fall right back. I've been one of those people a few years ago, and it's just like, just embrace the process. Once you get to that
yeah,
spot, just like keep chipping away. It'll get there. Like it will get there. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting that it'll come. You keep doing, you keep working, you keep like doing those things, and you'd be surprised as once you start networking, how small the world is. Right?
yeah,
Like, I've had so many situations like, oh, Kevin? Like, Kevin, I went to high school with him, or this, that. So it's like, stick it for the long haul. And, all these people that you see who have so much success in big networks, it's like they took 10, 20, 30 years to get there.
yeah. It's yeah. They're just always doing the work, right? We were talking about that right before. It's like we're
Yeah.
always working, and like finding out. But then you got to find out being present with your family and all that stuff. But man, I'm messaging you and Kevin,
Yeah.
and I know we got different time zones. It's like 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. Right? Whatever. The
Yeah.
kids asleep, and I like finally can get back and like catch up
Yeah.
on stuff, right? But like or maybe I'm not available like first thing in the morning. But like we're just
Yeah.
always on. When you fall into it, when you love it, it's easy,
Yeah.
right, to do it. And like that staying present, and all that. So now that you work your tail off, right, you're like, how do you balance the two, right, with work and with personal, and kind of knowing what that switch is? Like how do you manage that?
I'll so I make time for my friends and stuff, and I am a multitasker in some ways, in the sense of I was on a meeting with Kevin at like 1:30 a.m. and I was like, we gotta watch this YouTube video on how to grow on YouTube Shorts. So I was like, yo, Kevin, but I gotta get my exercise in. So I put the tablet and I rode the exercise bike while watching this YouTube video. So
Yeah, I
for
love it.
me, it's like finding ways that you can learn and still do your things and all that. And then thankfully, I'm gonna tell you, like, there are 4 types of skills. There are skills you're good at that you like doing, skills you're good at that you don't like doing. There are skills you're bad at that you like doing, and skills you're bad at that you don't like doing. When you're in business for yourself, the things you're bad at that you don't like doing, have someone else do, or you got to outsource. You can't do that. It's going to drain you. You do an hour of that, you're just like done. The things you're good at that you like doing, that's your zone of genius. That's your zone of excellence. I tend to put all my work in the zone of excellence. You tell me, hey, you got 10 podcasts tomorrow. I'm like, cool, let's go. Back to back to back. You tell me, hey, I got to organize my room. I'm like, done. It's like,
I
I'm just
was
out.
just gonna say that, like, my skill that you're bad at, you don't like doing is vacuuming, cleaning.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I can vacuum. I just can't do multiple things when it's
I
like, hey,
guess,
if you
yeah,
tell,
I'm skilled at vacuuming, but
yeah,
actually, I shouldn't say that I'm not, because my wife
yeah,
listens to this. You
yeah,
know, babe, you're great. Like, you're great at vacuuming. I'm not.
yeah,
I'm not that guy. No,
yeah,
but I'll do the dishes though. I do the laundry.
yeah.
But
The other thing I want to say, the things you're good at that you don't like doing, you have to be very careful about this in business. Those are your burnout skills. Because
yeah,
oftentimes people are like, hey, you're so good at sales, but that doesn't mean you want to do sales the whole time. Oh, you're so good at organization. That doesn't mean you want to do it all the time. So you have to find out and limit those to when you need it. Maybe presentations you're good at, but you don't want to be presenting 5 times a day. And the things you're bad at that you like doing, those are you're like, hey, you know what? You should improve on them. Like, hey, you're probably a little good at this. And that's how I balance it, in that I focus on the things that I'm good at that I like doing. I get other people to do the rest. So that's why it's like I could show up at 2 a.m. Like me and Kevin will record videos at 2 a.m. and it's like I'm ready. I have energy.
yeah.
So it's like you have to really find that system that works for you. Find these little things and understand yourself. And that takes years, honestly. Like it probably took you years just to figure out, like, hey, this is what works for me. This is a system, like, and just working it out with people. But it took me some time.
Yeah, it's. I love that. I mean, you guys inspire me. I mean, I've loved your energy and Kevin's energy since the first call we had, like July,
Yeah.
August, and we get on these things. We've recorded stuff. We don't record. I mean, I think every time we have a conversation, we probably
Yeah.
should hit record, right? And it's like fun because it is all a flow thing for us. We love doing it, and I've been loving doing these and recording these episodes and hearing stories, and it is fun, right? It's like,
Yeah.
wow, this is like something I like doing. I don't know how skilled I am at it yet, but like
Yeah.
I love doing it, right? And kind of being on the calls and one-on-ones and just talking ideas and execution and what works, what doesn't work, right? Whether it's a one-on-one call, group call, recording a podcast, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun. And I think one of the things I've been most impressed with you guys is like the dedication you guys have to mastering your craft and taking that ownership of whatever you're doing and working. I'm always learning something from you guys on the algorithm and all that. Like
Yeah.
that's actually stuff like I'm good at LinkedIn content. I don't love studying the algorithm and all that. I just don't care. Right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's why
Yeah.
now I got you guys like to
Yeah.
like fill me in on that and all that. So I love it. Like it complements that. And that's the thing. You guys are such a great compliment to what we're doing at Digital
Yeah.
Recruiter. Like both your perspectives and with the sales and the content creation and kind of the candidate experience and Kevin's recruiting background, like it's so fun when you can put yourself out there. And now like I kind of feel like we have like this like all-star team and the digital recruiter of like coaches, and it's just like with you guys, with Keely with sales and Ross also with content, like the direct response, and Christina with her tech and operations with the recruiting and sales background. It's like it's so fun for us to come together on these calls and just like talk shop. I'm like, man, I can't wait to bring this to the crew, to the recruiters, right, on the group calls. Like that's the zone. Like I'm grateful for that every day because it's so fun. Like it's so fun.
It is so fun. And when you get that zone of excellence and you find people who are in their zone of excellence, you compliment each other. That's when it's the most fun. Because the other point is, Kevin and I were like, yeah, can we do sales? Yeah, but we love the coaching aspect. We love the creative aspect the most because it's like you have limited time. So it's like when me and Kevin got together, and it's funny, I met Kevin in 2020 and I gave him advice on how to get into recruiting and he ran with it. Yeah. I barely knew anything, but I had some knowledge and I gave it to him and he ran with it. And now I'm learning so much from him. But it's like now we're together and we're doing it. And it's like the timing worked, but it's like we put in those reps and we put in those things, and it's like he has these strengths, I have these strengths, and we work together and we understand, and it's fun.
And you see, we've all seen each other put in the reps,
Yeah,
and it's all learning. So there's a trust, there's a respect factor there that like I respect the work you put in, that Kevin's put in, that Christina and Keely, like we all see that. And like when you have that, there's no shipping or anything else like that. It's just like let's keep getting it. Like let's keep getting better. Let's keep helping our clients get better. And you coming in and you guys coming in like loving that coaching piece. I'm like, great. I love having a bunch of great coaches in here, different perspectives. That's a huge value add. I was like, and I love sales. Like, I love sales calls
yeah,
because I know how brutal the market is out there. And I like people that are like, what the heck is going on with this like coaching market or whatever else? And they get to talk to me and we just like, we get after it. Like, we can talk shop the problems that are out there that they've run into, why things haven't worked. I'm like, look, here's what's going on. I think here's what you're seeing. And like, here's the other way to do it. Here's kind of what I found. Like, what does this sound like? I'm like, that's what I've been looking for. I'm like, awesome. Right. Like, I love kind of throwing out the life draft, right. And kind of bringing them into the digital recruiter crew. And like, we're going to get you right. Like, we're going to do this the right way. Right. And that is so fun because then I know I got a team of coaches like you guys that are going to take care of them. You know, I'm going to
yeah,
be in there too. I'm going to be on the calls and coaching one-on-one, but so are you guys. I'm like, we're going to take care of you. Come on in. And then when people see that, it's like, oh, like this like came through. I'm getting my money's worth plus some. Like, whew, like right. It kind of that faith, and then they're like, oh, I invested in the right thing, and that is so powerful for people. I'm sure it's the same thing for you with the resume. It's like, oh, I picked the right person,
yeah,
right, and it came through, and like, man, like we're just each one people. That's kind of the most we can do, right?
yeah.
That's it. Like, I'm pretty good with that.
Yeah. And no, look, that's rewarding when I get those messages like, "Yo, I got 2 interviews. I got 3 interviews. I'm getting offers for like I've gotten people raises in the 80 to 130K range."
Crazy.
And I was like, "Man, that's like bigger than Hope People's salary." And I was shocked. I was like, "Okay, now I know." And it's just so rewarding because now
Mhm.
you've like changed your life and these people end up being the best referral sources. So I always say, do great work, get good results, and you'll get those referrals.
What's the secret as much as you can share
No, I
to
can share
getting those
everything.
raises.
No,
Yeah.
I can share. What happens is you got to have a resume that's so here's the thing about resumes. People go for fancy things, and you as a recruiter know it's like, give me something simple and clean. Don't do all this stuff. Just go straight to the point. And I say, look, recruiters, depending on where they're working, they work with an ATS, so keep a format that's simple, clean, nothing fancy. I don't even put underlines, italics, because some of these systems, like you're going to these systems and they're not returning candidates, and you're like, wait, I remember that guy had it, and it's like weird, right? So I say use a simple format. Then the other thing is, look, when I sit down with them for 2 to 3 hours, I'm asking them, hey, what do you do? Oh, I close deals. What type of deals? Oh, I close deals for people in the trucking, logistics, manufacturing industry. Okay, how many deals have you closed? Well, I closed about 20 deals this year. Oh, what were your KPIs? Oh, I was supposed to close 12. So I was like, you're like 80, you're like 66% above, you're like 66% above quota or whatever. And then like, yeah, I am. I was like, okay, so why didn't you put that? You just put closed deals. And and then I was like, how much revenue is that? And then I was like, oh, that's X amount of revenue. So then I'll be like, hey, prospect and generate leads in XYZ industry in this territory. And you talk about closing, you know, 20 plus deals and X about. So now what happens is, yeah, it's on the resume, it's in their mind. Now when they go to interview, be like, hey, I closed 20 deals within XYZ industry. My quota was 12, so I was 66% above quota. Now it's like, cool, I got the thing. And now you can go into the how of what you did. What was your creative approach? Here's how I did it. And then you as a recruiter, you have to sell the candidate. When they have a good resume, it's like, hey, look, there's this guy
Yeah.
above quota, has sold in your industry. Do you want to talk? So it's about understanding that and then interviewing. So that's really what it's about. But look, that's the secret, but it's not easy. As you know, in coaching, I say, hey, create good content, do this, but you got to sit down with the person and get it out of them. Because I say, look, you have all the information I need to do the resume. I need to ask you the right questions to get it out of you. And that's really the secret. Go into your numbers, keep it simple, and highlight it. You'd be surprised.
I mean, it's brilliant. I mean, that's what we do with the LinkedIn profile and
Yeah.
get the results, quantify it as much as you can on there. Make it simple for a hiring manager to read, for a recruiter to read, for a recruiter to sell you to a hiring manager is a
Yeah.
huge underlooked piece of it. Right. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing I tell recruiters that are looking to get in business development, get more clients. I'm like, make it easy for your clients to see what problems you solved, how you
Yeah.
solved it, and make it simple to digest. And yeah, it's hard to get to that simple. That's why we're there. So we coach them
Yeah.
and teach them. But that's where the magic is, right? Is
Yeah.
making it, what's in it for a person on the other side, right? The person you're trying to reach to. That's what you got to get across, right? Making their
Yeah.
job easy. And
Yeah.
that's where you get the domino effect of referrals or getting the interview and all this other stuff, right? You make it easy for people to understand kind of what you're doing, what you've done, right? And where you're looking to go. Like it's hard, but that's where the
Yeah.
worthwhile work is.
Yeah, and that's why like each line takes time. It takes like five. It's a conversation of like, okay, you don't need to in the interview go into that detail, but over here they just need to know. Recruiter needs to know industry, what you did, the context. Like people will be like, hey, like I've done resumes for people in retail. I was like, look, obviously you did this. How many customers did you serve? Oh, I served like 200 plus. I remember one guy. I was like, how many tires did you change? He changed 10,000 tires. I was like, you don't know anything about tires, but that's a lot of tires. That's all you need to
That's
know.
a lot
I
of
changed.
times.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a lot of tires, and that's it. You really need to know how to sell yourself, and then once you get out there, people start realizing like, wow, I bring this much value, right? That I'm doing contracts that are like $1.3 million ACV. I'm doing XYZ. I expanded territories. I sold new products. They need to know that. Because you can't, as a recruiter, you can't be like, hey, Jonaed was amazing. Trust me. And the resume is crappy. He's like, oh, I trust you. We had a good feeling. It's like you're using your social capital to put your neck. Whereas like, hey, Jonaed, he was a great candidate, very enthusiastic, and here's his resume. And you're like, okay, boom, let's do it.
Yeah, that's why in the agency, like we got the intake form. That's always on there, right? They got to
Yeah,
quantify. They got to. You can't have just a touchy feely, right? The critter
yeah,
notes being like, "Great candidate, love the conversation." Like that's not enough. Like we need
yeah,
more because these companies have been burned
yeah,
before by that and by trusting, right? The first recruiter and all that. So you always got to be like, "How do I stand out? How do I be better?" And that's how you
yeah.
do it as a recruiter. So as a candidate, if you're bringing that to the table, it's amazing. So
Yeah, you just
yeah.
make it so much easier, and then now you're much more confident, and just like you said, you give away all the secrets in the
Yep.
podcast. Like I'm pretty sure, like if someone listened to all your podcasts, but again, it's one of those things that actually executing it, actually doing it, that's a totally different level.
It's a whole different level. So it's and that's where kind of we're going into the the content, right? We've teamed up with you and Kevin to create content for recruiters and executives that are looking to capture their brand and know they need to be consistent and get their voice out there and stand apart from other agencies, right? Because it's like car insurance or it's like
Yeah,
anything else. We talked to the car content call, right? Like we know Progressive and we know Geico because of the lizard and because of Flow,
yeah,
right? I know these names, right? So
yeah,
you gotta
yeah,
figure out you gotta capture your voice, you gotta stand out, right? That's what we're doing. That's why I'm excited to create video content and text content and carousels and podcasts for recruiters and executives as we go forward because I think we're like together, we have it down. Like the recipe down and kind of what works, and always staying ahead of the game. That's why it's super exciting to kind of work with you and know that we can deliver that incredible service to
yeah,
the clients. So we're already starting to do it with digital recruiter clients and people that are coming in. So I'm excited to kind of keep building on that, take what you've learned from all those resumes and candidates and what you and Kevin and I have all learned for doing content, creating it for our clients and just adding to that in 2024. So I'm excited to see what's to come and just appreciate you having coming on here and joining me, man. So yeah, what do you want to leave the people with?
what I would say is, if you watch, I have a podcast too,
Yeah,
so I have the
we'll
No
link to
Degree
that.
pod. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I have the No Degree podcast. So if you I interview people without college degrees and have them share their stories. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, Clark will put it in the show notes. But I generally like talking to people. Just send a personalized note. Just say, hey, if you just say Clark, I will 100% accept it. You don't have to give a sentence. I will know that
just one
somehow
that
Clark.
Clark. It's like a
Yeah,
coupon code, just a
yeah,
coupon code Clark. That's
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Coupon code Clark. So just do that. I would say, look, trust the journey, trust the process, take your time, and you'll see it will be worth it.
I love it, Jonaed. You are a wealth of knowledge, and I have just so much respect for what you've built, your work ethic, and just always awesome to talk to. So I appreciate you being here, man.
No, appreciate being here.
Of course. All right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Make sure to do all the nice stuff, 5 stars, all that good stuff. Like, download, help us get the word out. So we appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time.